liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Alt?
Here.
Mr. Beistel?
Here.
Dr. Fike? Here. Mrs. Kaufman? Here. Mrs. Love? Here. Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes? Here. Mr. Bentz?
Here. All present. Before I ask for citizens' comments, since it was questioned at our last meeting about, during the citizens' comments about how they work according to policy, it does say in the policy, citizens' comments cards must be handed to the secretary by the time the roll is called, that the meeting is called to order. So just pass that out to the public. And also, when you come up to speak, you must state your name and your address and any group affiliation. If you have group affiliation with anything, is also according to policy. And you're not addressing any board members or questioning board members. You're just giving your comments to the board. So I just wanted to pass that on before we start citizens' comments. Citizens' comments, please. Jan Kiefer.
I couldn't thread my subjects together into like a unified message, so this is sort of like the anti-establishment superintendent's report or the minority report. So it's unauthorized, of course. On the speaking policy, a 903-0992, the public participation at board meeting in the Southmoreland. On section 3, the policy does not stipulate a card needs to be filled out to speak at the end of the meeting comment period. And also in 9A, which I think you just referred to section 9, but in 9A, it empowers the chairman to interrupt when comments become personally directed or abusive. Examples, turning to the audience and saying shame, shame. I think we all saw this, and it's unfortunate that only one person, myself, took the initiative to stand up to this injustice. This has been repeating for years, of course, and I've spent several more meeting policy violations, but in the interest of time, I can't get to them. But these things always seem to work against the minority, and they really do need direction. And I have a list of about 5 other things that need to be addressed on this issue. But the reasoning is the public institution, as well as our community, stands on the foundation of the ability to uphold quality public meetings. The shortcomings, as I just said, almost always have worked against the minority, and I'm going to address those, and I think we'll turn that around. As a next subject of my report here, as internal praise last meeting, it was said from the stage that we're very high in achievement and successful district financially, and the same speech sort of went on to offer his opinion that there was no credibility to those offering critical, disagreeing perspective, and there's no credibility in their data. So on the first issue on achievement, comparing how well your staff has mastered the technique of teaching to the test, let's just take away the bubble testing, which is a bubble like the housing bubble or the high-tech bubble, and tell me what evidence and what evidence you have of this great achievement, and where the comparisons to the past are in this achievement, and where the comparison is to private levels of education, the parochial schools in town, and just prove to me without this illusion, as I call the bubble testing. It's a destructive illusion, by the way, in my opinion. Prove to me that there's excellence in learning, and I'm going to offer about 8 web pages that or articles that challenge this this paradigm of teaching or test taking. And the second part of talking about taking advantage of Southmoreland's impoverished standing to get these bubble testing standings. 3 generations ago, this community was considered one of the richest town per capita in the United States. I'm not sure if it's true, but it couldn't be too far off. And all that wealth and culture didn't disappear overnight. And further on that subject, I found it hurtful that this forum continues to equate Southmoreland poverty to inner city poverty, where kids can't step out and play after school, where they have racial disadvantages on standardized testing, and family unit is rare and non-existent. And again, more factors than I can list here in the interest of time. But you need to compare apples and apples, and we'll see. I don't think you can do that. The second point was a successful district financially. And there's some issues there. We have the public-private sector pay discrepancy. We have the private schools that have done it for half the price for generations. We have the pension fund, which is at risk. No one seems to be able to talk fluently on that issue. I'm not convinced. Not to mention the part of that investment fund that's invested in child slave labor industries. Talk about hypocrisy. No one knew that at the last meeting there was a $180,000 bond fee. It's just $180,000 for someone filling out some forms and mailing them in. That's real something to be proud of. He was telling you to be proud, and it's been repeated that our tax raise is $28 a month. And does anyone want to stand up right now and say what percentage of the state funding goes into public education, what percentage of the public service goes to public education? And we have a perfect economic storm. What's Southmoreland's plan? Has there been any discussion? I have those discussions for my personal finances with my friends, but what's your plan? Are you just going to wait for the big bailout to come? Almost done here. In the Believe It or Not section of the report, headline: Corbett gives public education funding, teachers get raise. Believe it or not. Highest paid, best teachers retire early, test scores soar. Explain that one to me. Student newspaper Tana Shanner is unavailable to the public. I've tried many times to get
10
some
seconds, Jan.
copies. Finally, then, I have been waiting a year to have a discussion on the cafeteria food based on good science, not folklore, mom's recipes, industry, or government agencies in propaganda. I've looked past the scoreboards with Pepsi ads, fundraisers, McDonald's, chocolate-covered pretzels, snow cones, but this ice cream eating contest takes the cakes. From a medical perspective, is physically injurious and sends the message to you it's okay to be reckless. Where does one start an rational conversation about nutrition with a dysfunction like this? We had 200 people here for...
Mr. Garstang?
I didn't hear you.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
The first time I spoke here, I asked if we had to say our names, and I was told no, so I guess we need to go over our policy. My name's James Garstek, and I live in the 4th Ward. Is that okay? Okay, that's fine. There's been some lively discussion, I guess, about the budget and the deficits and taxes and all that stuff, and we all have money issues because our dollar is worth less every day and prices go up every day. I don't know how that works. I look back, and when I moved in to my home in the district, I've lived in the district most of my life. There was a brief period where I was out of the district, but when I moved into my home in the district, the millage rate was 41 mills, I think. We're going to 71 mills now. So that's a 75% increase in 20 years. You could probably argue that that's not enough. If you look at price of gas, maybe it's gone up 200%. I understand why you guys have budget problems. Do I think they're going to be easy to fix? No. We do have to fix them, though, and I think that's the issue. So it's not about, we got to probably, I hate to say this, but we probably have to not focus just on the kids, because if we lose track of the finances, the kids are going to fall regardless. Anyways, a little bit about me. My mother was a school teacher. She passed away young. Not looking for sympathy. I just want to let you know that I respect school teachers. I mean, I came home from school and, excuse me, my mother would be tutoring kids, so I get how the whole thing works. I received a letter from somebody, an email. They don't live in the district. They asked me to read their letter. They're a psychologist. I'm not really good. Not good. I really don't feel all that comfortable reading somebody else's words, but being that it is a doctor and it is a psychologist, and I'm going to go for it here. And the reason I think that it's important that we look at other people's...
Just a minute.
sorry.
Well, that person's not speaking here, so you can come in and quote George Washington if you want to, if it's relevant
Oh,
to
my
the
goodness
meeting.
gracious. Are you really asking if I can quote? How about you?
No, I just got done saying that you could quote George Washington if you wanted to.
Right,
I'm just
right.
not sure of the relevancy of
I'm
it.
just trying to let you know that I feel more comfortable in my own words, but being it's a psychologist and a doctor and somebody that's been to school and studies psychology and all that stuff, you know, I felt it'd be all right if I read that. So I'm going to just start out here. But I think we have to understand that the residents of the state are taking care of the district. Scranton, Pennsylvania is broke. I don't know if you guys have seen it in the paper, but the state just today offered them $2.5 million, $2.25 million, $2 million to help get them on their feet again, and a loan, and $250,000 grant. They've been in state receivership since 1992. That means the state's been in control of Scranton for 20 years, and Scranton's broke. So we got problems at all levels. I don't want anybody here to think it's personal. It's not. I think we got problems from, the president to the pauper, okay? There's problems everywhere. This letter says, as a Pennsylvania resident, both the state and federal taxpayers, I have an interest in the status of the functional local school districts who accept monetary assistance from our state and our federal government. I'm concerned that my state and federal taxes are utilized responsibly and appropriately by our school district. Our schools are for the education of our children, and that's the primary purpose. And that is where our taxes need to be directed. Having read the news stories about the financial crisis in our district, I decided to attend a meeting. This is Dr. Gallo speaking. He attended the meeting on June 27th, and he was impressed at the number of people in attendance. He was encouraged to see that many people interested in the function of the district, and he heard a number of statements from parents and residents about the good work of the schools. I agree. We do good work. He also heard students express positive feelings about their involvement in the school district. Good. Our school students like our school district. That's commendable. This is certainly a good thing. He goes on to say, and there's much in the district for the residents and the students, and I'll even add the teachers, the school board, anybody in the district to be proud of. Discussion of the financial status of the district, however, was a serious concern. And an even more grave concern was the denial by some of the school directors, staff, and residents of the precarious financial situation that we're in. Our school's business manager outlined 3 plans, and I'm going to just go through this quickly because I don't want to run out of time, but all 3 of those plans were broke, and just the number of years that were broke. That bothers me. We can't raise taxes 1 or 2 or 3 mills every year for the next 5 years and expect more people not to show up saying they don't want their taxes raised. It's going to keep growing. As he's a practicing psychologist, and in his experience, it shows that the denial of the district it's a powerful defense. Denial. It serves as protection, but it also serves to ignore reality. Denial is often described as the proverbial elephant in the living room that no one dares talk about. The problem is that if one is not willing to accommodate the truth, one cannot embrace the power effectively.
10 seconds left.
He goes on to say that there seems to be only 2 school board members who want to seriously look at the financial policies and problems. I agree. I find it interesting that we went through a 40-minute discussion about how to verify numbers and make sure they're accountable.
Thank you.
I've been at many meetings, and I haven't heard one verifiable
Thank you.
or accountable number from the district. Thank you.
And I did give you 30 extra seconds since we were asking the question, so I did give you more than 5 minutes.
Thank you. When we get into our...
For citizens' comments, because I have a comment. I read the policy many times on that, and it says that you don't point out school board members. When it was asked for Ken and I to resign from the board at the last meeting, would that have been someone who should have been ruled out of order? You. I'm asking you, Mike.
It was her last statement. It's not like I could stop her from talking. That was the last thing she
Okay,
said.
so anybody then can say anything about any school board member at any point, and it'll be considered a statement. Is that right?
Well, I got called stupid. Remember that?
No, from a citizen's
From
comment.
sitting out here.
I'm talking about the citizen's comments,
It
Joseph.
was a comment from
It
a
was a
citizen.
comment from a citizen.
And I believe that was ruled out of order, if I remember.
No, certainly it was not.
You did not rule that out of order. I thought you did.
It
that I
doesn't matter,
remember.
the past is the past, it doesn't matter.
No, I just
Let's
need to
move on.
clarify. Is it okay to name people and say things like that without them being ruled out of order? I just need to know if that's okay, that's all.
I think that a citizen has the right to, I mean, you don't have to respond, but to say I'm dissatisfied with this or that policy or this or that vote, and I think you should resign. If you start calling persons names, I think that's a personal attack. I think that's the distinction. I think if someone disagrees with your votes, with your policy, that's one thing, and I think that's protected.
Okay.
So that's my opinion.
When we get into the voting meeting, you will be asked to approve the minutes of June 14th and June 27th.
I have a number of comments on those meetings, on those minutes. May I ask Martina, please?
And then now's the time to do that.
On the very last page, I'm sorry, the minutes of June 27th. On the very last page, there are two things that first of all, the one that I feel was not made clear. I guess I see these board minutes as the final record of what is going on. And when you look at that solicitor's report, the final bond obligation and so forth, does it say anywhere in there how much money we're going to get?
No, it doesn't look like it.
I believe that if there is a finalized bond obligation, that's a critical issue, because my calculations are that we paid $180,879 to get $345,000, and I don't think that makes it clear. And I think that should be in the report. That the costs are there 2 or 3 times. They keep repeating the costs. But I think it is essential as a formal record for our school district that we put in that area.
It's not that they're repeated, it's previous
Right,
projections, actual costs, and then the entire.
Right. And I'm agreeing with you, Peggy. I'm
The
saying we deal with it.
entire bond obligation is put into the minute book then. All the paperwork that went along with that motion is in the minute book.
It's documented somewhere. Just
Oh, it's somewhere, Josie. It's somewhere. I just think that in the minutes it should show that we only got $300 and some thousand.
Don't spend a lot of time on it. She's making her comments. Will be noted in the minutes. Let's go.
I have the floor, Levi.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
The next thing that I wanted to talk about that is extremely important to me is under citizens' comments, you'll see one line. It says, Holly Burkhart feels students are not prepared for college, barely have writing skills. I watched a number of board members who virtually ignored this woman while she was talking. And I am very, very serious about what she said, and I'm very concerned. I made a copy of her presentation, one for each board member and one for the superintendent. This is a woman who deals with students from our school district as well as others, and she's the real McCoy. She's coming in here telling us that these kids are coming to school and they can't even read, they can't write, and they can't read. Now, I understand that we're real thrilled with all of our scores and so forth, but I believe that where she says that the school board needs to address serious inadequacies in our schools, and that salaries and extravagant fringe benefits should correlate with equal increases in the quality of our educational system. I believe that it is incumbent upon the board to invite this woman in with the administration, whoever chooses to come, an informal meeting, and ask her where the problems are. What is it that we need to look at? She's seeing a lot of kids across the board. We're all real happy with the kids that go on to do real well and so forth, and you know, my life is filled with that, and I don't worry about that. But apparently we have some real serious problems here, coming from what I call the horse's mouth. I believe this woman was completely ignored. You did not ignore her, Leah. I'll tell you one thing. You sat and you listened to every word she said. I watched you. Other people were talking to each other and so forth, and I was very much aware of that. But I would respectfully request that we contact this woman and ask her to come in and talk to us. Because I want to ask you a question. As part, do we do follow-up studies on our students after they graduate from high school? Do you know?
I know we do on our learning support students. I do not believe we do on regular ed students.
See, it was my experience that high school guidance counselors are supposed to do these follow-up studies and just find as many kids as they can. But I have not been aware of anything like that that's been done here. And so this, to me, is a golden opportunity for us to sit down with somebody who's down in the pits with these kids and say, tell us where the weaknesses are. Tell us what we need to focus on. I think perhaps we need to look at, you know, apparently these kids are taking the SATs according to what she says. I know, so apparently these are college-bound kids.
Is it just Southmoreland students
No,
that attend group series?
no. But I want to know about the kids that we have, yes. You can ignore all the other schools,
How does she
Gail.
know who's Southmoreland, who's
Yeah.
Pleasant?
We're not picking on any kid. You're not listening to me.
No, I'm
Josie,
listening
do
to
you want your world to be serviced only by people who go to Southmoreland?
No,
I care
I'm
about
just
all
saying
kids, all
she's-
kids.
It's making it sound
She
like
came
it's
here
our
to address
Southmoreland
our board.
kids.
She came here to address our board, so.
I have the floor. But anyhow, I would very much ask the administration and the board to consider sitting down and talking to this woman, and she may be able to give us information that we don't have. And I think that's another great concern. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is something that happened at the board meeting. Davis Simon addressed the board about the progress of his reading project, and he said that he had $3,939, and he was $61 short. And I want to tell you that Davis Simon walked to the back of the room to sit down, and Jeff Balzer, the county controller, was here, and he walked over to him and said, "How much do you need?" And he opened his wallet and gave him everything he had in his wallet, which was $59. He was a couple bucks short. And I thought that was a very kind thing for Jeff to do to help this kid, because this is not a student of his, or somebody who's even in his school district. The other thing that I have a real hard time with, I'm real big on fairness. And this is not a criticism, please understand, this is not a criticism. Under citizens' comments, the first line says, James Garsteck addressed the board regarding the budget. Number one, that really wasn't true, in a sense. He came and gave a very inspirational talk, and I believe it was called What If? What if you wake up tomorrow and the decisions you made are going to destroy your life? What if you spend money that you don't have and what's going to happen to you later and so forth? And he gave a very inspirational talk, and I think it deserved more than 3/4 of one line. However, if you get down to the bottom of that section, you'll see that a cheerleader who came in to make points for her kid, obviously, gets 5 lines, okay? And that's fine. We're not stupid people. We know what they're doing. You know, it happens everywhere. You know, this is rah, 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 be good to my kid. I know all that is. And that's fine. We all know that. But I do think that we're not giving, like I said, I look at what James Garsteck said, the what if. I look at what Holly Burkhart said, and how this is treated so lightly. And I don't understand why this kind of input from the public is not valuable to the board, and certainly should be dealt with in the minutes in a more respectful manner. That's, you know, Dr. Molnar argued with Ken Alt about things. There's 4 or 5 pages of that in here, okay? But there's one line for a person who is trying to help our kids and trying to help the district. And I just feel that they're not being treated fairly.
Finance?
Mrs.
I'm sorry.
Love.
I have a comment about this, Holly Burkhart. She teaches grammar and composition skills to incoming freshmen, and they're demonstrating inadequate skills, and then they are required to take a lower level instructional course.
Right.
They require tutoring sessions. So basically, the college is saying, you need to take tutoring and you need to take this lower instructional course so that we can get you ready for the other courses that you need to take. So basically, the college is making money off of them supposedly not being ready. And she suspects that the SAT scores will reflect these lack of these skills. I'd like to know where she's coming up with this stuff at.
Well, she's correct about our SAT scores, Amy. She's correct about that.
You have our SAT scores?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had them for years. The one thing that bothers me, and you're right, they do pay more money. It punishes the student. See, this is what I'm worried about. We're punishing the student because if they can't get their English classes in sequence, that may prolong their graduation. It's not there's nothing good for the kid coming out of it. And all I want to do is talk to her, find out where she sees the problems, and if we can help to address them. Is there something wrong with that? It's for the kids. I don't care about the colleges. Sure, they're all making money. They're making tons of money. We need to help our kids.
Anything else?
That was minutes.
I'm sorry. Finance?
You will be asked to approve the treasurer's report and the detailed revenue report for June 2012.
Questions?
Yes. I don't have it with me because there are so many papers. But Mr. Petone, what was your involvement in that bond refinance procedure?
Reading all of the documents and talking and commenting back to Mr. Pastel and to Mr. Kinney's office.
I don't have it with me, but it is correct. Is it correct that there was $6,000 to charge for your work?
Yes.
That's like 60 hours.
No, it was a set fee. I had informed the board whenever we got started with this that my fee would not exceed $6,000. I thought that's what it would be.
I missed that, man. I wasn't on the board. Was I on the board?
I don't know if you were here that night or not. I just remember.
I've never missed a meeting. Okay. Then the other thing, and this is like going back to shades of Tony, Liz, and Sam and I again. If you look at the treasurer's report, we go back to the last page. And again, we're looking at our investments. And we have $3 million in the Scottsdale Bank, and we got $22,920. They're paying 0.75. And then PNC, we're making $13,000, and we have like what, 2, 3, 4, $5 million in there. We have less money where we have the highest interest rate, and we have the most money where we have the lowest interest rate. Is this something that's carved in stone? It's been going on. We talk about saving money without cutting education. That's $9,000, $10,000, and we're only halfway through the year, right? So it'd be like $20,000 if it's for the year. I know we talked about this many times, but I still don't get it. I'm not getting it.
I think I remember a conversation when Bill first came on. It's only been a little while that once he got settled and things that he would possibly look into different rates, different banks. But I mean, the just getting his new computer program in and just getting through the budget, and so maybe
it's been a year.
In the next couple months, maybe it's something to look into different. I know they want to keep it different, not to put all your eggs in one basket.
I know that. The Josie, the smallest amount of money we have gets the largest percent of interest, and the biggest amount of money we have gets the smallest interest. And it just, again, we're looking for ways to save money, to make money that doesn't affect education. And I know we've talked about this, and I don't know, I guess it's not, I just don't know what else to say. We've asked about it and asked about it and asked about it. It's just, it goes nowhere.
How long have you been here, Bill?
11 months.
So, I mean, you're getting settled and now you're over the big major things, so maybe we could ask you to do that.
But one of the problems is the money that we have in Scottsdale Bank and Trust is in a savings account, and that account does not accommodate the day-to-day transactions that we make through PNC Bank.
That's always been the reason that they've given, but
Then it must be the truth.
Well, and I think it's a good one to kind of to keep looking at it. In the industry, banks are not looking for money. In fact, they're trying to lend money. Interest rates are very, very low. It may be different. My brother's a director in a bank in Ohio. They're not making anything on loans these days. The interest rates are very low, and so I don't know the sky. I don't have any inside information on any of the banks here. I'm sure if he comes calling, they're not necessarily looking for additional funds. So I'm sure that factors in. But I'm totally interested in maximizing. I agree with your concern, interest of maximizing whatever we have in savings.
Other questions on finance? No old business?
I had some old business. Mike, you had asked for that list of terms that I gave to the IU, so I brought this for you.
Thank you.
I have in my possession hundreds of petitions that were signed by the citizens of this school district requesting, I think all but one or two, whatever it is, requesting that there not be a tax increase. And Jason Polakowski is the only person who's even taken the time to look at them beside me, and I commend him for that. He looked at them to see, what was done. And but this is my question. I've asked it before. What do you do with petitions when they're handed to you or handed to us? What do you do with them?
I know when they were handed to me, I handed them back to Mr. Ault, and then they took them away. So I don't know what happened to them.
Okay, but what's the policy, so to speak, or practice, or whatever you want to call it, when a board is handed a petition? What happens to it? Do the people read it? Is it passed around? Is it?
I do not know the answer.
Well, I have a suggestion. In my experiences with other boards, okay, they have what's called, and Peggy, maybe you do this, it's called a board meeting packet, where you make a packet of everything that happened at that board meeting and file it accordingly. Is that right? Is that what you did? Mm-hmm. Could not petitions be a part of the board minute packet when they are presented to the board? And they become then, you don't have to, just put in the minutes that they were received but to be put in a packet. A lot of people go to a lot of trouble to pass these out, they sign them, people deliver them, people bring them, and I just don't think we should dismiss this. It didn't do any good. It didn't do any good. You know that. We all know that.
Where are they?
I have them, Bill, because
we don't have them. We don't have them.
Okay, what are you going to do with them?
Some back. The original stack I gave back to them, but later on, they came at another meeting and handed me a stack and I turned them in.
I don't remember you handing me any.
Well, my question is, as a policy, can they become part of a board packet, a board meeting packet, and simply note in the minutes that the minutes were received and recorded, the petitions, I'm sorry, that the petitions were received
I think that would be the appropriate way to address the receipt of those petitions, is to record them in the minutes that they were received and Beyond that, I don't know what else.
Beyond that, then we should make a policy. Are we going to have people look at them?
Well,
Are we
whatever.
gonna- You know, what are we going to do with them? They're here. There's hundreds of them. But they are an expression of the wishes of the community. And if you remember, I wasn't very happy about the infamous roundtables and what happened to that information. That went in the trash can. So I just think that if this board would agree, or some policy written or something, that when petitions are received, they will be filed, and then they were available for review or something like that. Anybody have anything to say?
Sounds like a good idea.
Thank you, Judge.
Any more old business?
Yeah. Are you done, Dr.
Go ahead,
I'm not going to belabor this, but I do want to go over it. And I do want to start off by saying that this is a reply to Dr. Molnar's reply to my making some statements. And I don't want this to be looked upon as him and I arguing or an attack on him. Because personally, Dr. Molnar has come in after the fact of a lot of these numbers. And he was not the superintendent for a lot of this. So when I throw his name out there, it's not necessarily his doing, but he's answering the questions now. So I just want him and the rest of the board to understand that it's not personal. I look at this as strictly business and money. At the June 27th meeting, Dr. Molnar addressed the board, casting dots on facts and figures contained in my presentation on June 14th about overstaffing, overbuilding, and overspending, resulting in waste and abuse of taxpayers' funds. And I don't mean to disparage Dr. Molnar's reputation. Is the truth. I don't think we are. My thing says he was not comparing apples to apples. I agree. We aren't comparing apples to apples. And at the end here, I'll explain why and what I think I need to have from the administration. But I'm going to go over some of these things real quick, and I don't want to be here till 11 o'clock tonight. Dr. Molnar, I believe, made my case regarding overstaffing when he showed on page 1 of his analysis that since 1990s, we dropped one administrator going from 12 to 11. During that same period of time, enrollment declined 30%. So keeping the same administrator-student ratio, we should be furloughing 2 administrators and their staffs. The fact that we have not decreased the administration's enrollment, or with the enrollment, is the reason our administrative costs are 8% of our budget rather than the recommended 4%. The conclusion, the administration has failed to reduce administrative personnel consistent with declining enrollment trends resulting in overstaffing. As managers entrusted with the use of scarce and dear public funds, declining enrollment trends, past, present, and future, must be considered, starting with reductions in administration. I request the administration address the board with appropriate reductions in administrative staffing consistent with declining enrollment trends, past, present, and future. According to Piper Jaffray, enrollment will continue to decline another 110 students by 2017. The cost containment to be realized by the district should be approximately $500,000 to $750,000. Even with the requested reduction in administrative personnel, the administrative budget would still be fat, more than the recommended 4% of our budget. Show us a plan to reduce the administrative cost to 4% of the budget. I'm not going to go through all these numbers. I have a list here of all the years of when the students declined or increased, and the average, what it costs to educate a child. For instance, in 2002-2003, we lost 68 students, and that year an average was $9,000 to educate a child. That's $612,000. You can go through these. Some years, like in 05 and 06, we actually gained 8, at times $10,000. In that particular year, that was $89,000. But overall, we've had a decline of 445 students. That means we've overspent by $5,023,000 $21,000. At a 1 to 20 teacher-student ratio, a loss of 450 to 445 students equals 22.25 teacher reduction. Dr. Molnar said there were 155 teachers in 1998 and 146 in 2011 for a reduction of 9 teachers. We are still overstaffed by 13 teachers with declining enrollment of 110 students in the next 5 years. We can further reduce teaching staff by 5 for a total of 18 teachers reduction by 2017. All teaching staff reductions were a result of retirement with the $65,000 bonus. Given fewer students, budgets should have decreased by $5,021,000, inflation adjusted. Lacking of planning for declining enrollment has resulted in waste and abuse of $5,021,000. With the FITE-ALT budget scenario, each student cost of the district is approximately $13,500 and was not changed. We request that the administration address board with appropriate reductions in teaching staff given enrollment declines past, present, and future. In the June 27th meeting, Dr. Molnar suggested keeping the administration building open all these years cost taxpayers about $148 when the function could have been moved to Southmoreland High School. This is not chump change, as it amounts to 3.56 mils tax reduction the taxpayers could have realized with better planning, giving enrollment decline over the years. To summarize Dr. Molnar's savings from closing both the administrative and the SPC, administrative building costs $356,148 over 12 years. That averages out to $29,679 a year. SPC costs $204,820 a year for a total cost of $234,499 per year. Using $26 million budget, those two schools account for less than 1% to operate 2 out of 4 buildings. And I have a hard time believing that is the case with those numbers that were given. In fact, again, I think Dr. Molnar made my case there was significant waste of money, $356,148 by not consolidating facilities as enrollment declined. Many costs will not transfer to the new location as they are specific to the property. Example, 1 single water bill, sewage, cleaning, telephone, maintenance, blah, 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 is cheaper than 2 bills for each of the services supporting 2 different sites. And I don't think Dr. Molnar took this into consideration. I think and the savings would have been more. Using Dr. Molnar's numbers, 3.56 mil and tax reduction from closing the administration building is a step in the right direction, and it is recommended that we proceed as quickly as possible to save taxpayers money. When planning for administrative offices at SHS, we must take into consideration the reduced administrative workforce needed given declining enrollment that was addressed previously. Dr. Molnar discussed closing Southmoreland Primary Center and the savings resulting from that eventually. Dr. Molnar stated at first, followed by facts, that the custodial and maintenance salaries for SPC are budgeted at $75,975 per year. The fact of, in 09 it was $103,600, in 10 it was $93,750, and in 11 it was $95,388 for an average of $97,388. Custodials, according to Dr. Molnar, substitute salaries for SPC are budgeted at $3,000 per year. 09 was $10,000, 10 was $10,000, 11 was $10,000 for an average of $10,000. Dr. Molnar stated building security for SPC is budgeted at $1,500 per year. Fact is, in 09 it was $3,000, in 10 it was $3,000, in 11 it was $3,000 for a $3,000 average. Our numbers on Blue Cross and Blue Shield are consistent with each other. Maintenance and custodial Social Security, according to Dr. Molnar in the budget, are budgeted at $6,550. The facts are that in 09 it was $9,020, in 10 it was $9,020, and in 11 it was $9,025 for an average of $9,022. According to Dr. Molnar, maintenance and custodial Social Security for SPC is budgeted at $6,550 per year, when in fact 09 is $7,725, 10 is $7,291, 11 $8,053 for an average of $7,690. There are other ones about water and sewage, but I'm not going to continue to go on them. We did agree on the extermination services and the ADT, the general property and umbrella insurance and natural gas. There's telephone and cable that we came up with different numbers. But mine are 3-year average taken from the 2000 and 2011 budget. Dr. Molnar's numbers are considerably less than what was budgeted over the years. Dr. Molnar's number for maintenance and utilities alone added to $204,820, while mine added to $243,036. The much wider discrepancies in our analysis of cost savings to be derived from closing PC is because Dr. Molnar only considered the maintenance and utility savings from SPC. I don't believe Dr. Molnar took into consideration the savings resulting in closing the cafeteria, reducing busing runs, elimination of a principal, staff, nurse, librarian, and guidance, and the likes of those services already available at the Scottsdale campus for transferring K through 1 students. Nor did he take into account the factor of $700,000 savings resulting from not putting air conditioning in SPC. In short, I don't think we were comparing apples to apples. It's not chump change what we're talking about, and I'm not even going to go any further, because I think what Dr. Molnar has done is he addressed it, he's actually looked at actual receipts and actual costs of some of these things. And I am not privy to that. I am privy to these kind of things that are given to me. And so I guess my first question is, when I look at these things, and I see these numbers in here, especially, for instance, this was the 2012-2013 Southmoreland budget, and it was given out on May 24th of 2012. When I look at these, other than the future ones, are these accurate? Or are they just being copied from what the projected budget was in those years? I mean, because that's the only thing I get to take it from. I mean, if these are accurate, then my statements are accurate. But if these are inaccurate, then my statements are inaccurate. And the only way that I think we can all get on the same page and say we are comparing apples to apples is for Bill Silm to give us an expenditure report for the year so that we can actually see the actual cost. Can I get that?
The budget is a map of the year's finances. It is not meant to be an exact accounting for where every dollar is spent. Your budget reports that I've provided you in the past are those that have been provided to you for the last 20 years or so. Those are the reports that are generated by the system that we have in place. Every expenditure that we make in the district is in your board report.
What I'm asking for is not the monthly. I'm asking you for the yearly. Because if you want to project next year's budget, you must have something that tells you what this year's expenditures were.
Right.
And I would like to see a total expenditure sheet. I don't think that's that much to ask. I mean, you obviously prepared it because you based your future on your past. So I would like a copy of that expenditure report. Will I be able to get that for the year?
Well, if what you're asking for is what I'm thinking of, it's about that thick.
I'll take it. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, you're going to tell me that when you look at something and you say, I bought basketballs all year long, are you going to go back and look at every month? You don't have a tally that says at the end of 12 months, I bought $6,000 worth of basketballs?
I do.
Why would I want to report that big? I'll take it. But that report is line by line of everything that we spent, obviously.
Right.
Okay. And that has every bill that we paid in there. Right. Why is it so thick?
because that's the way the system produces it.
And those are pages of what? Just the monthly reports?
No.
Is that what I'm going to get again? 12 of those?
No.
Okay. Well, then I'll take what you give me.
All right.
Bill, I have a question, okay? I looked at some budgets even beyond, somebody gave me them from before, and there were some numbers that never, ever, ever, ever changed. If you budget $1,000 for ergles, okay, and you spend $500, the next budget says $1,000 for ergles and you spend $300, and then the next budget says $1,000 for ergles. At what point do you change the projection on these things? Because some of them never change, and there's no way for us to. We have no way of knowing what's being spent. One thing I do know is the budget went up $1 million, or 700,000, or whatever you want to call it. It went from 25.
Which budget are you referring to?
The total number went from 25 to 26. So something
our
went up.
expenditures went up 0.3% last
Okay, but
this
I'm
year.
the number, we're talking millions, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars when you do that.
Well, if 1% is 260,000,
Yeah.
then a third of that is about 80,000.
You mean the difference between last year's budget and this year's budget is only $200,000?
The expenditures, yes.
Well, then how's come it went up?
The expenditures went
From
up.
25 to 26 something.
Just expenditures, not pensions and all that
Well,
stuff.
Oh, see, I'm saying that's all expenditures. Okay. But what I'm getting at is, at what point do you use what happened last year? Is this boring you, Gail? What happened last year or the year before?
No, I have a back
Okay.
problem and I have to stretch and move because I have pain.
Yeah.
Okay?
But you're looking at things, we have a history, is what I'm saying. And that history doesn't seem to affect what you put down for the future. And there's no way for us to ever really know. I said to Ken, I said, I think they're going to tell us we have to go through every month. Remember I said, I think that the only way we're ever going to know
Well, I can't speak of what history took place before I arrived here. This is my first budget that I produced, and I did the best way I know how. Now, I can't speak to how Mr. Porter produced his budgets, but I do know that when I produced the budget with Mr. Molinar, that he and I sat in his office and I went through that big book that I was referring to for Ken, and I did my projections as best as I could to my ability.
Well, from now on, though, if you see that there's a pattern, in your professional opinion, if you see you're only spending 300 or 1,000, would you drop the projected budget for the following year to 500 instead of?
Well, that does make sense, yes.
Well, we
I think that's
we
what
actually
he's
did that in
asking
some
for.
cases.
Right, okay.
But I
We
think
did that
to
in many cases.
get back to our problem, like I said, it's easy to sit and take pot shots and criticize people who are trying to do something.
Well, yes,
how
it
do we
is.
get the figures then, right, Ken? How do we
that's
know?
why I'm asking.
We're giving you your own figures and you're telling us they're wrong. And we're just at our wits' end. They're your figures we're using, right?
Well,
out of that
I'm
book.
using this that you gave me to figure out what we're spending. Now, if this is not accurate,
Maybe
then how can I
maybe
be
you're
accurate?
reading it wrong.
No, I'm not reading it wrong.
Okay.
I'm not reading it wrong.
Do we have that much?
I'm not a stupid man, Bill. I know how to read, and I'm not reading it wrong. When the same things are put right after each other, obviously no attention is being paid to these budget that you put out, because they're the same numbers over and over and over again. When I ask for something like what I just asked for, I should be able to get a report.
Those numbers must be accurate then. If those are the same
Well,
numbers
it's accurate.
year after year after year,
They're not accurate. They're either accurate or not accurate. What are they, Bill?
they're accurate.
They're accurate. So then what I just said is true, then Dr. Molnar is wrong about the figures that he has. But he's not wrong because he's using actual invoices. So how can
That's
this
a
be
budget.
right?
That's a guideline. It's not the actual expenditures.
I still don't know why you're telling me I have to have a book like this. You can't print me out something that tells me what the expenditures were for the year?
Ken, as I said before, I'm coming in on a system that's 20 years old.
Bill, you're in. You're in. I want to know what we're spending. I don't want excuses no more. I want to know what we're spending. Okay? I'm not going to debate this. I can speak for myself. I don't need you to speak for me.
We don't need to treat each other like this.
Oh, yes, I think we do, because we can't get the answers we want. How many times have we asked for something that Bill doesn't want to know?
He'll do it.
Yeah. New business, please. Oh, I want to make one announcement. You guys are entitled to talk, but save it for the end of the meeting, because old business is setting the agenda for the voting meeting. So if you guys have something like that that's not agenda related, that does need to be voted on, then please save it for the end. I get the price to everybody.
And I have a real issue with that. It says that the purpose of a planning meeting is to plan the agenda for the voting meeting.
But that's
Where do we come in?
But I'm saying that's nothing to be voted on, so save it for the end.
What time do we have? There's 2 minutes between the meetings. How do we do it? We can't do it. It's handed to us.
At the end of the meeting, I always ask, do any board members have anything else?
We want agenda items.
Well, no.
What do you want voted on? What you
This is just
what do you want voted
kind
on?
of a...
I have some
But
motion.
Mr. Alton, Dr. Fike, we have spent an hour here, and the two of you have had the floor for about an hour. We have tried to respectfully listen to you.
Sure.
Okay? Would it be fair, then, for the rest of us, who also are here with sincere purposes, and I assume you have, that we've listened to you? Perhaps there's just a possibility we may disagree with you. Okay?
Speak up, Levi. I don't hear anybody speak.
Okay, I'll put it in general terms, but then I'd like to go on with the agenda. When I listen to these voices, I hear a comparison of an ideal that you have of what should be class size, what should be administrative size, what should be budget. However, that's not the world I live in. I live in the world where my comparison is, how are other comparable school districts doing? And I'm putting this in general terms. And if I compare us to the Derrys, to the Mount Pleasants, and not to get specific, but to the schools in our area, we are a very efficient school district. If I compare us to comparable, and that's what I'm doing. Economically we are, academically we are over those others in many ways in achievement levels. 10 years ago we were on danger lists and on these we're not on those today. We are doing very well. So I simply disagree with some of the assumptions. Let me give you another example. When I hear these examples of a golden age, back when I was in high school or back when I was in college, I don't live in that world. When I went to college, I had an indebtedness of about $3,000 when I left it. Tuition was about $2,000. Our children went to school. Tuition now is $25,000 to $50,000. Okay? I live in the world of today. It's more expensive. So we're constantly trying to say, how do we keep costs contained, and how do we raise revenue? And what is a fair way of raising revenue from the state, from the local, to meet those expenses? And if I look at that, I have a much higher degree of satisfaction with how our system is doing here, and how Southmoreland is doing, than you do, and I understand that. But I'm not going to, we could go back and forth on the details of it until 10 o'clock tonight, and I'm not interested in it. I'm interested in listening to you, and I'm interested in listening to you, but then I want to go on and do the agenda that is at hand.
And you're not going to keep me quiet, Levi.
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to keep you quiet. I'm only begging you.
At this table,
I'm only begging you in a fraternal kind of way to think of what would be a fair distribution of time.
I disagree with you more.
New business. Discussion.
Before we go on, Bill, can you tell me
New business
again,
discussion.
just one question, Mike. What are the category numbers, just the numbers on the administration building primary? They're real quick. Did you say 210 is what, 220? 210?
I'm not going to interrupt.
210 is,
Alverton?
yes.
Isn't 220 Alverton?
No.
210's Alverton. What's the administration building?
040.
040. And the elementary school?
220.
220. And the middle school?
500.
500. And the last one's the high school?
800.
800. I have no way of reading the budget without knowing that. I thank you for that. Thank you, Mike.
New business discussion.
Mr. Colbert. Mr. Colbert is here to discuss the possibility of placing a World War II memorial on the stadium property. You may remember that he was instrumental in getting the memorial that we have currently on the Roughdale grounds.
Listen, I got some good news right off the bat. I'm not going to ask you for any money. My name is Ken Colbert. My address is, I live in Rice School Road, Bullskin Township, Mount Pleasant. But I do have a business in Roughdale. And as you know, in November of last year, you granted permission to place a World War II honor roll on Southmoreland School property at Roughdale, recognizing all the veterans who served in World War II from that town. And tonight, I'm making a similar request to relocate another World War II honor roll in Alberton. A lot of you may remember the old honor roll that was located right in front of the school that was recently torn down. There's a photo of it that I just, you can pass around and check it in your executive session, whatever. There's some information in there as well as a copy of this. That photo that you'll see in there was taken from the 1970 yearbook, and again, it's being passed around. You can view it later on, whatever. And it looks like it was probably torn down about 1973, but you know, like all the other ones, it deteriorated, fell apart. Also with it are copies of the article from the Daily Courier newspaper from 1943 that announced the dedication of the Alberton Honor Roll on October 3rd, 1943. And I got this information from microfilm at the Connellsville Library. The article describes the whole program with participants' names and the entire list of 71 World War II veterans from Alberton. And just like last year's request, I'm again not asking for any financing for the project from the Southmoreland School District. For now, anonymous donors have stepped forward and offered to foot the cost of construction. I'm asking that it be relocated near the entrance of the football stadium in front of the flagpole on the left side. Again, there's pictures there just showing you, of course you guys know in your head, but there's pictures there to help you along when you discuss it. In its original location, out in front of the school, there was also a big flagpole right behind it. The location is ideal to make it look very much like it looked in 1943 when it was originally dedicated. And I'd also like to ask for Southmoreland band participation again when the monument will be rededicated, hopefully in October. The band was indeed a big part of the 1943 program, and I'd also like to try and make the program mimic the old one as closely as possible, as we've done with all the others. October 3rd this year falls on Wednesday, and it hasn't been decided yet as to when we will officially dedicate the honor roll. Or on or around the 3rd, before or after, just not sure. The dedication time was 2 o'clock back in 1943, but 2 o'clock I understand may interfere with high school bus activity, student dismissal, etc. And I guess we'll have to determine the exact time at a later date. But in summary, I'm asking for permission to construct the old honor roll on the described location and at no cost to the district. And I'm asking for band participation on the day of dedication. If the school district can provide these two things, I pledge to have an Alberton honor roll again near the site of the old one. I have my contact information here below, and I apologize for not being up on your procedures here, but if I'm limited to 5 minutes and anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me.
You are not here under a citizen comment. You are here as an item on the agenda as a person who was invited to speak to the board. So you are in a somewhat different category than a citizen's comment. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for your...
I mean, was totally going to reconstruct.
Well, I don't know, Jesse, because it was torn down like most were and hauled away.
Building a brand new one's being built.
Well, that's what we plan to do, yes.
Like the one that's in Russell, after school, Russell.
I've always had financing for this, but I was kind of surprised when the guy came to me recently. I assumed that they were going to build a structure similar to what we have you guys did in Ruffsdale, but they didn't think that they had the money available. It's incredibly expensive. So the plan is to go with a World War II type memorial, brick and mortar type design, similar to what was there. Hopefully to mimic it exactly. I asked Lee tonight if he could possibly get me the name of the brick if you guys decide we can do this. So we can match the kind of brick and, basically make it like the old design is what I'm asking for.
Ken, are the 71 names, is that 100% of the names that you would want on there? Or
It is. Yeah, you'll see a copy coming around, Dr. Fika, the list of those 71 names. And of course, I've rearranged them in alphabetical order now, and I've even found one for certain that will be added, and probably another one. And eventually, when it gets in the papers with the list of names, we'll do the same thing. We'll ask if anybody has any updates. Please let me know. Notify me.
You did it before. You did a search.
Same thing.
Do you have any brick left from the old pillars?
If I'm remembering, it's roughly 1,000 bricks to do this. They're all basically the same type of construction. And you could even cheat on it. You could do the inside with block, so you don't have to absorb so many brick.
So what we're going to recommend at the voting session is that you authorize Mr. Colbert to proceed working with administration to come forth with a recommendation on location and things of that nature, and then we would come back to you with a recommendation of exactly what and exactly where.
With whom would I have to confer, Dr. Mueller?
Dr. Scott, myself, and Mr. Mizwa.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, Ken.
The next item that we have for discussion, and I'll give you a little bit of background on this if you want significantly more detail. We will discuss details in executive session due to student confidentiality issues. Suffice it to say, we have a student who is in need of a residential placement. There is not a local residential placement available for this individual. The closest and least expensive alternative that we have for him is the Belfair Jewish Children's Bureau in Shaker Heights, Ohio. The cost of that contract, the educational piece alone, which is all that we are responsible for, is approximately $82,000 a year for the regular school year, and at about an additional $5,000 a year, a little bit more than that, for his extended school year program.
When did you find out about this, Jim?
When did I find out about?
About this placement?
Mr. Clare has been working on it for about a month.
I just wonder, because one of the things that I think you cut in the budget was private school tuition payments, I think.
Correct.
This doesn't help.
Some of this money we feel that we will be able to recoup through contingency fund. Contingency fund is a pot of money that is available every year through the state for special education students who have exceptional costs to districts. There's a pot of money that becomes available. The amount of money varies each year. They set a threshold, and if you have a student who exceeds that threshold, you can apply for some reimbursement. The amount of reimbursement you receive is dependent upon the amount of money that's available from the state and the amount of people, school districts, who apply for that money. So we would expect to be able to recoup some of that money. And Mr. Clara will discuss this in detail with you in executive session. Contingency funds? Yes.
You've applied for it?
Yes, we have.
Got it?
Yes, we have.
Good.
Last year, we didn't have anyone who met the threshold, but in previous years, I believe Mr. Clara did some last year. Unfortunately, I don't think he was successful. Prior years that I've done it, I've gotten anywhere from, just off the top of my head, 17 to 70,000, depending on the year. So. That's great. The next item we have is the Pennsylvania Association of Rural and Small Schools. We would ask permission to join that group. They do a lot of advocacy work for small schools, such as ours, at the legislative level, and the annual dues there is $940.
Jack, I have a question about this. Can you tell me anything they've ever really done for you?
I know they have a lobbying presence.
Yeah.
How much influence they have exerted, I do not know.
The information I have is questionable as to results, I guess I want to say, but
I can't say I've seen them on Channel 64 during like PCM, whenever like the House or Senate is having their meetings where people come in and give testimony. I've seen them, their representatives there speaking.
well, I don't doubt that they talk, Mike. I'm just wondering if we can really honestly say we get something for this. Conceptually, I think it's a noble idea. I understand that. But I'm wondering, do we really get something for our money? If you feel we do, I'll vote for it. I guess that's all I can say.
If you're not in it, what happens? They'll back you up on something.
It's nothing. This is not. Oh no, this is not PSBH. Jesse.
No, I know.
This is just a.
Yeah, they don't specifically. Our contact with them is we occasionally get a news update or a blurb from them saying, here's what's going on, we need you to write your legislator about this or that. But in terms of them working on our behalf as the Southmoreland School District, they do not. They work on behalf of the entire association as a consortium of rural and small schools across the state.
Don't half the school districts fall under that, Jeff?
About, yeah.
Are you satisfied with what you get from them?
I think we need that presence at the Capitol. And they provide it.
I recall when the fees, in essence, the attempt was to have some tax on the gas extraction, and on the fees on that. That largely affected rural schools, and the impact of that on anything from roads to schools to students. They provided some information on that, so that's at least that I recall was one time the degree of effectiveness.
Any add-ons before citizens comment?
Yeah, I do have a few things that came to my attention since you got your packets. There's an item that's not on the agenda. We received a request similar to the request we received last month from a totally disabled veteran whose taxes are being exonerated for the forthcoming year, and he's asking us to exonerate his taxes as of July 1 again. It's tax map number 4707000048. Taxes that are paid on that property amount to $317. So he's asking us to exonerate his taxes.
Anything else?
Yeah, is there discussion on that?
This is the second person. There was one last
Yes,
time. Is that-
yes. And he does have the approvals from the assessment office and the Veterans Administration and so on, which I have copies of. The next item that is not on the agenda, it is necessary, we as a Class 3 school district are entitled to have 2 voting delegates at the Legislative Policy Council during the School Leadership Conference in Hershey on Thursday, October 18th. So it will be necessary, if you choose to have representation there, it will be necessary to elect 2 of your board members to represent the district.
We're going to commend Lynn for this.
Pardon me?
We're going to commend Lynn Huggins.
Well, yeah, we're still on this thing here,
PSBA.
the PSBA delegation.
Oh, okay, I thought you were on there, okay.
Well, I mean, I told you what you need to do, but yeah, if you want delegates there, you need to discuss who you're going to nominate.
You nominate that now or at the voting meeting, or just
We can discuss it now, it really
discuss it?
doesn't matter.
Last year was, remind me, last year was.
Mike
I think Mike and Levi were the voting delegates last year.
I'll probably be at the vote day.
No question, but I don't know where it
Levi,
is.
would you be willing to do that again?
I'm open to it if you
Mike?
that's the will of the group.
Anybody else interested?
How much does this cost us?
I don't have that figure off the top of my head.
It's several thousand.
It's in the budget for,
Several thousand.
I can get you that information, Mr. Alt.
Thank you.
So we're going to officially do that at the voting session.
Right. So, is it the will of the group that we put Mr. Miller and Mr. Bentz on the agenda there?
Yes.
Can you separate it?
That would be up to the chair. You want separate motions?
Whatever, just
Okay, the next item I have, which is not on the agenda, the Policy 707 Committee finished work on the policy yesterday, and Peggy was able to get it typed, and we would like to get that policy posted for a 30-day period, during which time it can obviously be revised, but the wish of the committee was to have that policy in place before school starts, so we would entertain discussion on Policy 707.
I have a question. How was this policy developed?
Mr. Bentz, do you want to address that?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Can you clarify, please?
Was it committee meetings?
Yeah, and they were advertised and published,
Where?
posted
Where?
to senior high school?
The last one I saw was...
They were advertised in the Trib. They were advertised in the Trib.
In the Trib.
They have to be.
how many times did you guys meet?
Gotcha.
I'm guessing around 7 times.
You actually attended some of the meetings, did you
The
not?
first three, and then I never heard anything more about it, so I didn't know anything was being done, but I didn't read the Trib, I guess.
Remind us who was on the committee.
It started off with myself, Mrs. Rhodes, Mr. Beistel, Mr. Clara, Mr. Krofcheck, and Mr. Swink, and then halfway through, we went from Mr. Clara to Mr. Miswald just to get another administrator's input. And before I move on any farther, I just want to thank Peggy because she was able to get everything updated and caught up. We wanted to get it to the board sooner, but we had our last meeting yesterday. We finished about 3 o'clock and got to Peggy as quick as we could, and she got it to the board so that we could discuss it tonight to get our 30-day window to get it before the new year starts. So I want to thank Peggy and thank the board members, or committee members that helped out with this.
So from now on, if there are committee meetings, they'll be in the newspaper. Is that right? We won't be notified like we always have. They'll be in the newspaper.
I was under the impression that the schedule went out to the board, and if it did not come to you, I apologize for that.
Okay.
I believe that whenever it was originally advertised that a list went to the board, but I could be wrong.
Well, the first couple, yeah. But after that, it just fell apart. I had a hard time reading. Can you just summarize the differences between the new one and the old one? Because I can't figure it out. I have trouble.
Well, some of the stuff was, like on page 1, Mr. Krofcheck explained to us that we don't have a senior high school, we have a high school, so that's one change. It's just a lot of stuff that was needing to be upgraded and touched up that changed over the years. Number 17, sorry, I got the wrong copy here. Number 17 on page 5 was added. Everything that's in red was added to the...
Yeah,
We sort of gave we told administrators and Mr. Swink that we were trying to make it more black and white and give them more backbone so that when people come to them, they don't have to try to know what's what, that we give them something to stand on to tell the people this is what you are and this is how much it's going to cost, because of some things that they brought up that they had questionable whenever people did approach them. So on page 8 of 9, it also breaks down some of the groups more just to make it more to understand for them. And like on the one page, towards the back, we took out the principals' names just so if something does happen with the principal, we don't have to keep updating it. The fees, we included an hourly rate in addition to the cap so that if groups want to use it, like there's a group that uses the auditorium at the high school, they use the auditorium only for an hour, but they rent out the gymnasium and the cafeteria for most of the day. So we try to put in an hourly rate for some of the ones that might have an hourly rate applied to them.
where is that one?
It would be in the second section, which goes to it would be page 2 of the attachment section.
Didn't we have that before?
Page 3.
I'm sorry?
Didn't we have that before?
Have what?
Those rates? I thought we did.
Hourly rates? I don't think we had hourly rates. We did in the previous ones, but not in the one that we were working off of.
Well, you know, for the supplemental cost, Mike, we pay our security $10 an hour now. Did you know that? You've been charged them an hour. We raised the rate, didn't we?
How much it is?
Did we raise the rate to $10 an hour?
I think you're right.
It's $10 because we couldn't get anybody.
Right.
Well, we wanted to get this to the board. We still have 30 days to.
Well, you can
so
change it.
things like that we can change.
Yeah.
So are we in agreement we want security at $10 an hour?
Isn't that what we charge, Jack?
I believe that's the case.
The other thing is, did you change any of these forms, or are they the same as they were before?
The rent application, you mean?
All of them, Josie. Are they the same or different?
We changed a few from the administrator's suggestions just to make it easier on their end of things.
They look like the other ones. I just wondered.
There was very little change.
Yeah. Okay, this is my question now. Is this part of the policy or not? The attachment, is it? Because Dr. Mueller said you should not have these things in the policy. Remember?
Should not have what?
That was my opinion.
So what is this thing that you can call it an attachment, then what is it though? Because if we don't have it in the policy, it shouldn't be put out for consideration.
Well, you need it so you know what the fees are.
Oh, Josie, I'm not questioning. I think it should be in there. Oh, I think it should be in there.
In this particular situation, I don't have a problem with it being an attachment to the policy. What I was referring to when I made that statement was for each of our policies, there are certain guidelines that need to go along with how they're implemented, and those are not necessarily part of policy that may or may not apply to this particular situation.
One of the problems I had, Mike, if you go to page 3, now red print, there's
3
red
of the
print.
policy or 3 of the
The policy, page 3. Now, is the red print a change? Is that what that is, a change, if it's in red?
Yeah.
Okay, the red one and the blue one are identical. And that's where I was having trouble, Mike. I didn't
Which
really...
letter or number?
Page 3, the bottom of the page. What's in red is the same as what's in blue, I think. I read them a couple of
Just
times.
moved it up to make sure it was at the end of the paragraph instead of there being a gap in between the end of the first.
So it's
Moved
not
it up.
it's a format.
See,
It's a
we went to Peggy a
format.
couple different times, so Peggy put this in
Format.
like one of our earlier meetings, and so she just moved it up to be part of that.
See, because
Thank
I
you,
was
Gail.
thinking red print meant different, a change, but it's not. Okay.
Well, it's different from the previous one that Peggy did for us because we looked at this so many times that we just wanted to get updated copies along the way so that we weren't looking at old
Yeah, I
materials.
didn't know that.
Yeah, in Microsoft Word, when this is called tracking changes, anytime you even eliminate a space, it comes up as a change. And it has a red underline, for example, or a strike through. And then oftentimes when you have a red strike through and you strike through again, then it turns blue. After the
That's
second
why I was
revision.
asking.
Yeah.
I really didn't understand the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the attachments.
In terms of the attachment, the only thing that Dr. Scott just mentioned, perhaps the rental application per se doesn't need to be part of the policy, but everything else I think is how we're doing business with these groups. So it probably should, but again. That's not a big rock in my basket. The application perhaps should not, but all the other things that talk about fees and who's in what group and so on and so forth. I said it wouldn't necessarily have to be. Okay, I'm not saying it should or shouldn't.
No. I'm just questioning why you would take that one page out.
I was...
the application.
You said at one meeting, Jack talked about what should not be out of it. Not
Would
be
be
part
in
of
the
it.
policy, right.
And he suggested at a previous meeting that it was the rental application that could be removed from the policy, but these other pages about the costs
They
and
all go
fees
together.
would need to be
They all
part
go
of the policy.
I'd like to leave it in just because we did make a few changes of adding some things and taking out a few things.
Sure,
so it
that's
would be
fine.
nice to leave it in.
That's fine.
It's generally not that different then from what I can gather.
Well, I think
No, it's
pretty much the same.
where I was
streamlined a little bit.
The case, I'm going to vote for this. I mean, this is going through a long process, but where I would tend not to put the application on as a policy is, let's say the administrator would see that there's a need, down here on sound systems for that electronic computer hookup is needed many times, or a certain type. That should be within the discretion. It shouldn't come back here to this group. That's within the discretion of the administrator.
It's all through the policy, Levi, that the building principal or athletic director, depending on what kind of event it is, can use their discretion in different things.
Like what Levi's trying to say is if that application needs to be tweaked, we don't need to necessarily have a board vote to tweak the
Technically,
application.
if this is a part of it, if we change this, it needs to come back here. I would think so. If we approve the policy, the administrator could do some tweaking here without, at least technically. Frankly, I don't care if they do, but technically, they probably should come back to the board and check it. That would be my case. I'm going to vote for it either way, whether it's on or not. My only reason I say it, this board, we tend to become operational when and I think we get bogged down on those types of things rather than being policy, and that's all.
It seems like you've given more options and choices, like you turned it into a group instead of a class. I noticed that change also, but you've listed a lot more what is used too, so that's good. More clear on for you guys.
Any more questions or comments?
There will still be something come in that's not in there.
I'm sorry?
There will still be something come in that you have.
Yeah, and we plan to look at it. Well,
That's all you
however, just keep looking at it periodically instead of letting it.
It's pretty comprehensive, but it should be okay.
Anything else for 7?
That is all I have for public consumption. We would then go to citizens' comments.
Citizens' comments?
And after citizens' comments, we will adjourn this meeting to executive session, but then we'll be back out to convene a voting meeting.
We need to recess for personnel and litigation first.
We need to have citizens' comments. We need to adjourn this meeting and have our executive session, and then we will. So are there citizen comments at this juncture? Entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting to executive session with the understanding that we're coming out to convene a voting meeting.
Do we have any motion? Motion by Mr. Beistel, second by Mrs. Rhodes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? 9. Second by Mr. Beistel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Roll call, please.
Mr. Earl?
Here.
Mr. Beistel?
Here.
Dr. Pike?
Here.
Mrs. Kaufman? Here. Mrs. Love? Here. Mr. Miller?
Yes, here.
Mr. Polakowski?
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes? Here. Mr. Benz?
Here. 9 present. No citizens' comments. Approval of minutes.
It is recommended that the board approve the minutes of the June 14th, 2012 discussion meeting and the June 27th, 2012 voting meeting.
Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Miller, second by Mrs. Rhodes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Business and Finance.
It is recommended that the board approve the revenue report, expenditure report, bills payable, and accounts payable for June 2012, and the treasurer's report for June 2012.
Motion. Motion by Mr. Beistel, second by Mrs. Kaufman. Questions on the motion? Roll call.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Pike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0. No old business. New business, World War II monument.
It is recommended that the board authorize administration to work with Ken Colbert to select an appropriate site for a World War II monument at a designated area on the stadium property, and direct administration to present a final recommendation to the board.
I make
Motion.
that motion.
Motion by Dr. Fike, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beistel. Questions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Pike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Belfair Jewish Children's Bureau.
It is recommended that the board approve an agreement for provision of special education and certain related services between the Southmoreland School District and the Belfair Jewish Children's Bureau for the 2012-2013 school year.
I'll make
Motion.
that motion.
Motion by Dr. Fike, second.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Miller. Questions? Roll call.
Dr. Pike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel? Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Agreement with PARS.
It is recommended that the board renew a membership with PARS, which is the Pennsylvania Association of Rural and Small Schools, for the 2012-2013 school year at a cost of $940.
Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Kaufman, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rhodes. Questions? Roll call.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 8-1. Personnel, FMLA and parental leave. Carrie Scott.
It is recommended that the board approve for Carrie Scott a family medical leave through November 26, 2012, and an unpaid parental leave through May 31, 2013, with no break in service.
Motion.
Motion.
Motion by Mrs. Love, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beistel. Questions?
Do benefits continue through the whole thing?
She will be paid her benefits through her FMLA.
Yeah, but
When she
after
is
that-
on unpaid leave,
Yeah, but
her
after that-
benefits that are paid to
They
her
are
will
paid.
cease.
They're paid.
No, they are not when she's on an unpaid leave.
That's what I thought. Okay, so they're paid on FMLA and then they stop.
Correct.
for 6 months. Thank you. Thank you. I thought so, yeah.
That's why there's a limit on FMLA. Yeah.
Roll call.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0. Long-term substitute.
It is recommended that the board approve Beth Morsiglio as a long-term French substitute for the 2012-2013 school year.
Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rhodes. Questions? Roll call.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Pike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0.
Can I ask, is that middle school or high school?
Middle school.
That's what I thought.
Assistant.
Okay, Vince recommended.
Assistant girls basketball coaches.
It is recommended that the board approve the following assistant girls basketball coaches: Barry Collins, head high school varsity assistant; Emily Morrison, high school junior varsity coach; Brian Pritz, middle school head coach; Amber Cernuto, middle school assistant coach; Harry Bowser, volunteer high school coach; Dawn Lucas, volunteer high school and middle school coach; Amanda Gross, volunteer middle school coach.
Motion.
So be it.
Motion by Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Polakowski. Questions? Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel? Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0. CWCTC report.
Was there other things?
I'm sorry.
Soccer.
Well, that's always done. Super.
I'll do that under my report. Yeah, thank you, though.
CWCTC.
Okay. At our last meeting on June the 20th was the last meeting for the director, Joe Biondo, who he retired, and Brad Elwood took over as of July 1st. We hired a new principal, Troy Collier, for the new school year. He was the principal at Lenape, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Lenape. Seemed like a very good candidate for that. Also, they granted permission to advertise for a new graphic arts instructor and approved the Ludi greenhouse manufacturing to replace the horticulture greenhouse roof, and they will be using the monies from the hail damage from that. There was a very lengthy discussion on this item. We made a motion to accept the energy service company proposal from Chevron that was presented and prepared with all the documents. That is for the upcoming finance that they want to do for the construction project. But before any of this, we got the ball rolling by making the motion, but they want all the business managers and the superintendents to get together first before any of that. And just as a kind of a nutshell, they explained it for 15 years payment, it would cost our district, Southmoreland, $55,000. That would be our share for the year. But what happens, I guess, is we give them so much money a year. I'm going to say, like, just as a round figure, $100,000 at the beginning of the year, and whatever monies aren't used by the school, then VoTech gives us that money back. And that appears to be approximately the same amount of money that history we've been getting as a refund back. So they're supposed to schedule a date for the business managers and all the superintendents of all 9 districts before any of this goes any further. So,
Josie, I don't know about the rest of the board, but before I would vote to take on a 15-year mortgage, they better come here and talk to the board.
Well, that's why they're all getting together.
But that's not who votes on it, Josie. Business managers and superintendents don't have votes. When it goes down in the record, we take on a mortgage for 15 years. And I want them to come and tell me what that is. That's a lot of money. That's 17 districts times.
9.
Oh, I'm sorry, 9, yeah, 9. But even if it's just a matter of 55, you're talking $500,000, maybe $750,000. And you know, business managers and superintendents, that's fine. I have nothing against you, but they don't vote, Josie. I think
they're just making sure that the finances are in order. I can have. You want Dr. Matta to come, or who do you want to come to get talk to?
Who's doing this at the VoTech school?
Mr. Elwood?
I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I just don't feel comfortable voting on a 15-year mortgage when I don't even know what they're going to do. Do you?
Well, there's the roofing, there's the heating, the ventilating, and the where they do the welding. All that needs ventilated, up-to-date current ventilation for the welders.
Shouldn't they come and explain this stuff to us?
Sure. I can have
I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I will not vote unless
We don't have a meeting till August. There's no meeting in July.
Right.
I may be able to get you some information and share that with you
Yeah,
as
Jack,
well.
and I understand your position on that, but do you understand mine?
I did. One of the interesting things about the way this is being handled, it's being handled through Act 37. I believe it's 37, which is a guaranteed energy savings program that is administered through the Commonwealth. So the contractor who does the work guarantees a certain amount of energy savings. If that savings is not realized, then the contractor's on the hook for the difference. And in many cases, school districts have done this, and actually their energy savings have paid for the entire bond issue that they've floated. This will not be the case here because of the type of work they're doing, because in addition to the boilers and the HVAC and the lighting, they're looking at some roofing and things like that, which will cost some additional money. But there are many districts who have been able to replace boilers, lighting, and windows and HVAC and be able to make their bond payments through the realized energy savings. So that's how that program works.
When you walk in that school, it's like walking into the Taj Mahal. It's beautiful. And then when they put that food out, just it's like, you know.
This happens, not this school, it won't take effect this school year, it won't affect this budget.
When you walk
Just
in
so
that
you know.
building, it looks beautiful.
Well,
You
the
can't
roof
even
and things,
imagine.
yeah.
Well, I'm just saying though, you know, to me as an observer, I didn't see anything wrong. You know, but if they can give a logical explanation, you know.
Okay. I'm sure Mr. Elwood and their people would come.
I think we deserve it.
Is that the wish of the rest of the board also?
Yeah, I'd like to hear something.
Very well.
WIU report,
There is no meeting in July. And I
PSBA
gave the
liaison.
other one. I gave the other one to Jim.
Is that what these are?
Yeah. PSBA liaison, their report.
Superintendent's report.
I have some items to walk onto the agenda. First item I have, it is recommended that the board post policy 707 for a 30-day period.
Motion.
We'll need, citizens' comments too.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kaufman, second.
Which,
Second by Mr. Beistel. Questions on the motion from the public since it's not on the agenda? Questions from the board? Roll call.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0.
The next item I have is this. It is recommended that the board exonerate real estate taxes for a disabled veteran residing at tax map number 47-07-00-0-048.
Motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Motion by
second.
Mr. Polakowski, second by Dr. Fike. Questions from the audience? Questions from the board? Roll call.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0.
The next item I have, it is recommended that the board appoint Levi Miller and Michael Bentz as voting delegates to the 2012 PSBA Legislative Policy Council.
Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Beistel, second.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rhodes. Questions from the audience? Questions from the board? Roll call.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
I can't split my vote, so it's going to be a no.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
No.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 7-2.
The next item I have is this. It is recommended that the board approve Brian Mentony as the middle school assistant soccer coach pending receipt of clearances, and that will be at the contracted salary of $2,359.
Motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mrs. Kaufman, second. Second by Mrs. Love. Questions? Questions from the board? Roll call.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel? Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0.
The next item, it is recommended that the board approve Adam McCune as a volunteer middle school football coach. His clearances are on file.
Motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Polakowski, second. Second by Mrs. Love. Questions from the audience? Question from the board. Roll call.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 9-0.
It is recommended that the board employ Judith Bell as a substitute van driver, school security force member, substitute custodian, and substitute aide, with her salary to be job specific to the job that she is doing on any given day.
Motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Dr. Fike, second.
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Miller. Questions from the audience? Questions from the board? Roll call.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
Yes.
Mr. Beistel?
Abstain.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
Yes, motion passes 8 and 1 abstention.
And just a couple other items I have which do not require voting. To give you a little update on the stadium pipe project, most of you saw that when we were out touring today, but it is nearing completion. The pipe is in place, the bleachers are reassembled, the hillside has been reseeded, so we are awaiting progress to complete the rollback of the turf, and then we can call that project done. So it should be ready in plenty of time for fall stadium use. The next item I have is a letter I'd like to read from Seton Hill University addressed to me. Professionals willing to mentor Seton Hill dietetics students provide valuable service to our profession and program. Providing guidance as students apply their coursework to real-life situations is essential to their development into the dietitians of tomorrow. To recognize her important contribution to Seton Hill University Coordinated Program in Nutrition and Dietetics, Lynn Huggins has been appointed as an affiliate professor of Seton Hill University. Although this designation provides no monetary reward, the names, titles, and degrees of affiliate professors appear in the faculty listing in the university catalog. Seton Hill commends Lynn for her commitment to our cooperative learning endeavor during the fall 2011 semester. The expertise of professionals such as Lynn Huggins makes provision of the quality dietetics education possible. So we would join in commending Mrs. Huggins for her outstanding work. She does have a sign outside of her office that says Professor Huggins. The last item I have, just to give you a little update on some of the things that are going on. Today, the principals, Dr. Scott and myself, met for the entire day. We'll be meeting again tomorrow, reviewing our administrative priorities, our mission, vision, and goals for the district for the upcoming year. We're looking at how best to achieve those goals and how to implement the strategies that will continue to impact student learning. So in August, at the planning session, we will be asking you to consider and formally adopt 4 overarching district goals. So it's just a little bit about what's happening with us, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Jack, are they your goals or district goals? Because you're going to do an evaluation.
They will be, these are district goals.
Because, you know, there's other goals we have to talk about.
Right.
Okay.
And actually, we're on that. We've had some discussions on
But that
that.
would be you. Right?
Those are my personal goals, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's not this.
That's not this. Okay.
Right.
Solicitor's report.
My only thing is that I had not seen a copy of the proposed revisions to policy 707 until tonight. So just so my responsibility to you is clear, I'd ask you to make a motion for me to either review and give you advice on it, or not review it and not have to give you advice on it. Because I don't want to become involved in something if you don't want me to be involved in it.
Did you say make a motion?
Yeah.
Listen, you and I worked how many hours on the first 707, right? Many, many hours we spent together. So I would certainly, I would be surprised if the board would not want you to have the same input for this one. So I would make the motion that you have, what would you want me to say, that you have it?
No, I don't want you to do anything. I want to do what you want me to do.
You don't want to make a motion, though? That you
Well, no, I'm asking you to make a decision, one way or the other, so I either get prepared and give it to you, or I don't get prepared and I don't have to.
You don't want a motion. I was going to make a motion.
No, I want a motion.
Okay, that's what I'm making.
But I'm not saying that I want you
I know.
to do it either way.
I know that.
I want you to exercise your discretion unless you want me to comment on that further.
I had direct experience with you on that. I know how hard you worked on that to make sure that everything was, that was your big thing, to make sure everything was fair and legal and appropriate. I worked with you for many hours on that. So, you know, I would be very happy to make that motion because you brought in a lot of scrutiny and a lot of good ideas. So I make that motion that you look at it.
Motion by Dr. Fike, second.
I'll second it. That's fine.
Just as a comment, administration always supports Mr. Botonic ensuring that our policies are legal.
So during this time, if you'll look at it now, and then when we come back August for the planning meeting, you'll give us any recommendations that you think, hey, maybe I'll change this.
I would ask Mr. Botonic to give those recommendations to me, and then we can put the recommendations in your board packet for the planning meeting,
I just didn't know how
so that
that
you're
all
aware of how that goes.
And I recognize there's something of a time constraint here. When are our August planning meetings?
I already checked that we have 30 days.
No, we have planning meeting first, right?
Right.
I've
What's
got
the
a
August
trial
meeting?
before that.
There's no need to panic. We have something in
16th?
place. There is a policy in place.
9th and 16th.
So you want something before the 9th?
Yeah.
Well, and I think also, I view the motion as gratuitous because it seems to me our solicitor has within his, your position and your job description to review these things, and so I'm going to, frankly, I'm going to vote no for this, but that's fine. Let's do it.
Well, see, I haven't seen this until tonight, so I don't know if this, I'm concerned because of this area, and because it involves First Amendment issues, that it's bigger than just a one-time read-through.
We just finished yesterday, or we would have had it.
I'm not criticizing you. I'm just concerned about the time period and that I either don't do something I'm supposed to do or do something I'm not supposed to do. So,
part of being a solicitor is you review proposed policies for legality.
Usually, unless you don't want me to do this.
Well, then why would they not want you to do something that's part of your job description?
Because I haven't had...
Yeah, we just withdraw the motion and say that it's part of your job.
That makes,
I'm begging you to vote on this so that...
I make a motion.
Are you charging us for this? That's the bottom line.
Yes.
He does.
Is that going to cost us money?
He does. He worked hard on the other one. A lot.
But if it's part of your reality to go over the policies, then why is it extra? We have to need a motion.
Yeah. Because it's going to be extra work.
This is changing the subject, Chair, but if I can...
Your extra work is part of your contract.
It is, but I want to be clear that this is not a 5-minute read-through.
There weren't a lot of changes.
Can I... This is changing. Can I just... One, this is kind of picking up on what Dr. Fike noted at the last meeting. I would welcome kind of testing some... at voting meetings, some grouping of some, if it's personnel or if the large organizations often do it, and we are, whether we like to think of ourselves or not, we are a large organization, grouping some motions so we would have more time for discussion on issues and less of the, so I'm just saying to explore that.
Let's wait till...
Oh, I'm sorry, Chair.
Because she put it back on the floor. So
okay, good.
It didn't get a second yet, did it?
Sorry.
We both seconded.
I
thought I heard him rescinded.
Yeah, I rescinded mine.
Okay, then she put it back, so you...
I'm sorry.
See,
Okay,
he wants it. He wants it.
Okay.
Do you want this, David?
I want you to vote yes or no about whether or not I'm supposed to do this extra work.
Very sorry.
That's what he wants. I made the motion.
Yeah, I'll second the motion. Let's get it rolling.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mr. Alt?
No.
Mr. Beistel?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. Kaufman?
Yes.
Mrs. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Benz?
No. Motion passes 6-3. That's all I have.
That's it.
Sure. Anything
$5
from
you get there, mister.
anything from any board members?
Okay, can I,
Go ahead.
just a suggestion, if there is, within our policies, some possibility of some grouping of some motions, I would welcome that. I don't know how that, I mean, you could sort of test that through. The second one, appreciation for that tour this evening. I haven't been in the buildings that much. And hoping that in the fall, or summer, fall, at least that we would have some presentation of what the possibilities would be of some offices.
We'll come back with that plan. Mr. Miswell, you guys?
No, the administrative team will present something.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Anything else, Levi?
No, that's all.
Any other board members have?
Mr. President. I'd like to take a few minutes this evening to set the record straight. At our last meeting, as you all know, I was falsely accused of writing an unsigned letter that was sent to Catherine Pike. Let me categorically say I did not write that letter, and I have no idea who did. Do you really think I'd write a letter and not sign it? That's not my style. If I have something to say, you're going to know it's me. I'll sign my name, or I'll say it to your face. To accuse a fellow board member of such an act and think you can justify it by saying you have it on good authority is unconscionable. Where's your proof? Where is your proof? The First Amendment gives us all the right to free speech. It does not give us the right to make accusations at a public meeting without proof. I think it's time for this type of behavior to stop. Nothing positive can be accomplished. To quote the PSBA Code of Conduct, board members should work together in a spirit of harmony, respect, cooperation, despite differences of opinion. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything to say? Citizens' comments? Don't see any. Before we adjourn, I received a letter in the mail, so I'm just passing it out to the board. I did contact the person of the letter, and just to make sure it's okay to pass it out to the board, and they said it was okay. They gave me some of their background to validify the letter, so I'll pass this out. Motion to adjourn? No.
I move we adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Beistel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Thanks, everybody.